I'm here with Ashley Horton from the Cut Shop, and she has a super great idea for using a cut file as a template for stitching.
Yes, you can use the outline. If you want to use a big cut file like this, it's good to trace around it, and then you can stitch. You want to have that kind of a silhouette kind of cut so that you have that place to stitch the outlines there.
And I can see on your gorgeous layout here that it's not just that you've stitched around it, but you've actually added, what were you saying?
A string art type look. That's kind of come back. The string art crafts where you do the little plaques and things, and so that's made a big comeback lately. And so I kind of transferred that idea to the layout. So it's fun to take maybe home decor items or type things and then transfer that same idea to your layouts or projects that you do on paper.
Now these cut files which you designed are designed for a completely different purpose than this, which is why of course they have the words and stuff in the center. Yeah. But we're going to use them for whatever we want, because that's the way it goes. We're the
you
boss
could
of them.
actually use this again later if you wanted to, and so you could use it with the word.
Which is cool. So I've scanned these into our electronic cutter, and then I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out of some cardstock. And because we might use it again, it's nice to pick a color of paper or even a pattern paper that you might want to use again.
Because you could save it and just use it again on a layout later. You get a different look because you're using the cut file itself. So we want to start out and we're going to trace the cut file. So we're just going to take our pencil and we're just going to go around the edges.
And of course you're using a pencil because you want to be able to erase the lines later.
Yes, you can go back and erase those lines. Once you get your little holes pierced, you want to erase those lines. So
you're not being too fussy with it, and I won't make you actually trace the whole thing. That seems like seems like a lot to do, because I know that you happen to have one under here in which, as you can see, we actually
just want to get your basic shape, and you don't have to
it.
worry about if you get all those little indentions and everything. And so,
and I should mention right here that you've put this really cool piece of pattern paper on here already. And I'm wondering, did you put it on here already before you traced this for a particular reason?
I just wanted to get that on there just to kind of have an area for where I wanted to add the cut file and just to know where I wanted to trace. So that gave me an idea of like, I'm going to use this much space at the top for my title and my pattern paper. So that gave me a placement for where I wanted to put the cut file.
That's a wonderful design tip, because otherwise you might end up in a situation where it doesn't quite balance out. And this way you balance it before you even start.
Yeah, because if you did it right straight in the middle of your page, you're going to kind of lose that, like where you want to place your title and where you want to place your embellishments is going to kind of throw that off a little bit. So once you get it traced, then you want to take it, and we're just going to add a little pad here under because we want to punch holes.
You can use a mouse pad.
You can use a mouse
even
pad.
use a stack of magazines. Just something soft so you're not poking holes in your table.
You don't want to poke holes in your table. And so I just go maybe about 1/4 of an inch. I don't really even measure. I just kind of go along those lines. And you want to get around those curves. You want to keep it close when you're doing those just so that your embroidery floss will stay along that shape. And so we're just punching. And
now again, you're using a paper piercer, but you could certainly use a needle,
you could use a needle.
thumbtack, anything like that.
And this is great to do. This is a great project to do because it's kind of one of those things where you don't have to really think about it.
I was going to say, you could definitely do some cuts, hand them over to your kids. They could trace them. And they could even punch it as long as they're safe and they're old enough, obviously, to use a sharp tool like that.
A great interactive thing for the kids to do.
And you know, I've actually seen people make their own paper piercers by taking polymer clay and putting it around a needle.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. And so once you get your holes punched, if you want to, you can go ahead and erase. So it will just show you like you can get rid of it, but you still know where you're going to be stitching because you still have your holes there.
Now, do you erase your lines before you stitch?
I do. Sometimes I don't. If I'm using the black floss, I know that it's going to cover up pretty well, so I don't really worry about sometimes erasing for those. But if I'm using a lighter color, you know, like a white or something, I usually will just to get rid of those pencil lines.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this off because it cut for a second, just so that everybody can see how easy this is. And you know, you have your cut. And another idea I was going to say is, because remember, you have both the negative and the positive here. You could also use this cutout as your template for drawing if you wanted to use this on another page.
And if you cut something that has like a title in it, then you could also save that
use
and
the
use
title
it
of the one. I mean, you can just keep using the same file over and over so many ways, which I love. So let's get to stitching. You've promised that it's easy.
We're going to do a back stitch on this. So what we want to do, your worst problem here is just getting your needle through the hole. Just finding, you know, sometimes I miss and so I have to go back, but you want to pull it through, and I like to use washi tape. So we just want to get that down right there and to make sure that that's going to hold, because we're going to be pulling our thread through, so we don't want it to come out.
One of the great benefits of stitching on paper, of course, is that you can just tape it in place.
Yes, you can tape, and so what we're going to do is we're going to go through, and then you just want to keep doing that back stitch. So you're just
for
going to be
people
going,
who aren't familiar with a back stitch, what does that mean?
You're just kind of going back over the thread to get that line filled in there.
So if I can for a second, just turn this over so people can see what's happening. May I steal this for 1 second? Just so that you can see. You can see the 2 stitches here. So if I go into this hole, and now I'm going to flip this paper over so you can see that the needle's coming up, but see how these threads are crossing?
Yeah.
That's because I'm not going back to this hole, right?
Yes,
I'm going into the next hole. So now from the front, if I flip that back over, you can see it looks like it's just in a row, but actually in the back, we're getting this nice crisscross. So I'm going to let you, since you're a better stitcher than I, take that over
that remains
and do
to be seen. I have my moments. So yeah, you're just going to keep going so that you get along those lines there, and you want to get the whole thing stitched first this way. You want to have the whole outline stitched before you start with the string art.
And you know, a tip that somebody gave me is if you use a tapestry needle, which has a blunt end as opposed to a sharp end, you won't pierce the paper any extra. Now you have one here that you've actually taken the time, of course, to stitch, and now we get to do the string art.
And you can see, I don't think I even erased on this one, but you can't see any of the line. You just pick a spot and you want to start under your mat where we've already stitched. And
so I just want to flip this over again so that people can see. You're just going in one of the holes you've already been in.
Yes, one of the holes you've already been in.
Great, and I can also see again that you've secured your ends with washi tape, and where maybe you didn't have enough, if I flip this over all the way, you actually have several different pieces of thread, and that's fine.
So if you keep going,
nobody can tell. Okay, sorry.
Nobody's going to see the back. So.
Well, let's get the string arting.
All right, so we want to add a little bit of washi tape to that back when we pull it through. So we're going to pull our thread all the way through. And I got a long piece because this is actually going to use a good bit of the embroidery floss when you're doing the string art, because you're pulling across such a wide space there. And so you're going to want a good bit of this on hand. So
I'll move this one out because we're catching in the finished
sample.
So
you're just going to go back and forth. And we're going to hope that our thread doesn't get in a knot. And so we're just going to pull.
So you're just going to keep going back and forth. And if you just look while you're stitching, I'm just going to show off the finished one here. You can see that you can even go all the way across, huge leaps, small leaps. You just sort of want to go all around.
Yeah, you just want to kind of fill it in.
And of course, you brought some other samples, which have some beautiful examples of other cut files that you can use with the same technique. Ashley, this has been fantastic. I'm excited to go home and change the way that I look at my cut files.